Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
And so that's how I gave Jay-Z that stage name as opposed to Sean Carter.
Oh, great idea.
UFC fight fans, hello and welcome to another episode of UFC on AfterBuzz TV. My name is Jay Tan, and I am here with a Terrible 2 duo here. My tag team partner and cohort, as always, George Hermoza, and UFC fighter, emerging and rising star welterweight, Alan Jouban.
I never realized how unattractive I am until I sat next to this model, apparently.
I've always known it, man.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
What do you subscribe on iTunes or something?
Not that unattractive. But then I go online and he's like on these Calvin Klein ads in his underwear. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Damn it.
No,
Can he sit next to you?
Believe me, I know how it was. It was years ago that Alan and I used to train at the same gym, and when he was in class and I was in that same class, I made sure that I was way behind him when it came to the to the lineup in Muay Thai class and everything. I know how it is, man. I suffer with you. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, guys, of course we are back here. This is capping off the end of practically almost 2 months or so. I think 6 weeks straight UFC events. We're going to be taking a break next week, as the rest of the country will, to celebrate 4th of July. But for now, the UFC had yet another event, the last of a long string, at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida. Headliner was Lyoto the Dragon Machida versus Yoel Son of God Romero. Is it Son of God or Man of God? I should have double checked.
According to Wikipedia, it's neither.
Soldier of
God.
God.
I was like,
Soldier of
option
God.
C. Yeah.
Was that
Soldier of God.
I sit corrected
He's
there.
on God's team either way.
I was going to say, he's going to be, I'm sure he's going to claim Son of God and Man of God regardless. It was a sellout, over 5,000 people there. Up and down the card, some really interesting matches. Fight of the night went to, excuse me, let me run down the, wanted to get the name right, but let me just run it down real quick. It was a short show, comparatively speaking, 9 matches. Starting at the bottom, Serwan Kakai, unanimous decision over Danny Martinez. Tony Sims, wicked first round KO over creepy Steve Montgomery. Leandro Silva, unanimous decision over Luis Gonzalez. Alex Oliveira, unanimous decision over Joe Merritt. Hakron Diaz, split decision over Levan Makashvili. Thiago Santos, KO, nasty head kick over Steve Bossi, making his UFC debut. I hope we'll see him again soon. Antonio Carlos Jr. over Eddie Truck Gordon by submission with a rear naked choke in the third. Lorenz Larkin in the semi-main event over Santiago Ponzinibbio, second round TKO with punches. That one did get Fight of the Night honors. And of course, in the main event, lots to talk about with this one. The implications, the controversy, and of course the match itself. Yoel Romero defeating Lyoto Machida by KO in the third round. Just a wicked collection of elbows, taking him down and ground and pounding away. I would have labeled it a TKO, but Big John McCarthy, being the ref, kind of has been there before and knows a little bit about what he's doing. So I defer to him. Performance bonuses went to Thiago Santos, who had his his KO over Steve Bossi, and of course Yoel Romero as well for his win over the Dragon. What did you guys think? Interesting card, huh?
Yep.
And that's a wrap.
5 minutes. We'll see you again, folks. Take care.
No,
Yeah.
it was a good fight, a good night. You know, like I said, how far are they from ATT? Out of curiosity.
About a half an hour, if I remember my map quest correctly.
Okay. Oh, no, I was just curious. I mean, obviously, Romero training there, kind of maybe a sense of a home field advantage. Of course, Cuban community, I'm sure, is pretty big as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure he was very happy about fighting there.
I remember talking a little earlier this week with Nathan Coy, who's on this season of Ultimate Fighter, ATT versus the Black Zillions. He was saying that it was, I think, there were 9 different guys from ATT on.
Right. I think they said last night 8 guys, but either way,
I counted 8 as well.
Almost every fight was an ATT guy. The entire crowd was full of ATT fighters.
Yeah.
It was a definite home field advantage.
It was, well, I know that there were some issues. There were headlines a couple weeks prior to this event with visa issues, a lot of the Brazilians trying to come in. And I don't know the details of why there was a problem. But also strange, too, that it was that so many Brazilians. I wonder what the matches were. I regret not taking a look earlier, before this stuff hit on the UFC website to see who it was. If they had a Brazilian versus Brazilian, several Brazilian matches lined up, or if this was Brazilians scheduled against these guys and ATT guys coming in last minute. Because I remember Nathan talking about how ATT kind of came in and did the company a favor, providing a bunch of guys.
And I know there was a couple last-minute switches. The headliner on the prelim card was Alex Oliveira, the Cowboy, who defeated Joe Merritt. Joe Merritt took that fight, I think, on a week notice, but he actually trains out of, I want to say, Millennium here in LA. So he was a last-minute replacement, but he was not an ATT. Neither of those guys are actually ATT guys. Or maybe maybe Oliveira. Alex
Oliveira is Joe Merritt, not.
Joe Merritt
but
came from here, but
teammate with Lorenz Larkin, so he may have been training with Lorenz.
That probably helped get him in the door right there.
Figuring that he could peak at that time too. ATT definitely had a good night. They went 6-2, at least by my score or by my count. Very interesting to see. I don't think we saw any Black Zillion fighters on there. I mean, I got to say, having been ensconced in this ATT Black Zillion thing for the past 10 weeks, I'm always looking now at team logos on the shorts and stuff. Yeah, and in the season, Black Zillions have pretty much been smearing ATT on this season of Ultimate Fighter. So, that being shot several months ago, and then we jump into current times. But you see ATT rolling through, definitely having a good night. So, shout out to Nate Coy and all those guys there holding it down at Coconut Creek. I thought there's a lot to get. I'm not even quite sure where to start. As we talked about earlier, Ponzinibbio and Larkin ended up getting fight of the night honors there, winning $50,000. I want to say also, if you guys can catch the prelims, the one that set it off though, Danny Martinez versus Sirhan Kakai, nicknamed Zokan. That one to me was really fight of the night. Should have gotten fight of the night, I think. Really, Danny was really aggressive. A great back and forth fight. As I said, Sirhan Kakai came out. He won by unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. But there was great aggression in there, both guys back and forth.
Good fight, and man, what a chin on Martinez. Martinez can take a punch, man. He kept coming with the punches. His problem was, I think, his punches were just way too loopy. There were points in the fight where Kakai was so confident that he would have his back against the cage, and he was going Mayweather style. He'd have one hand up, and he was shoulder rolling punches because you could just see him coming so clearly with the loopy punches. I think if he would have just made that adjustment, throwing some straight punches, maybe mix up the level changes, just something else rather than just going hook, he might have been able to get in. But credit to him, man, because he's got a chin. There's a lot of times that I think he ate some big knees from Kakai during the fight that rocked him.
Yeah, especially in the first, he dropped him with a knee.
Exactly, but he came back from that and he kept pushing the pace. It was a really good fight.
Yeah, that one to me, like I said, was very exciting. Kakai definitely did. I think it seemed like after the first round, when he was able to get past, and it seemed like he kind of figured out Martinez's game. There was a certain boost in confidence. Yeah. As you were talking about when he was doing the Mayweather, he's also had that cocky smile like, yeah, come on, give it to me.
They weren't landing, Yeah,
they weren't landing, but Martinez was definitely swinging for the fences. That was impressive. That's fight of the night. When both guys give it their all and the fans are going nuts for it, that should be that's the thing that to me defines fight of the night. Should be credited, and taking nothing away from from Larkin and Ponzinibbio. Lorenz looked fantastic there.
He did, and I've got to stick with my welterweight guys. I think that was deservingly the fight of the night winner.
Yeah.
But the card that you're speaking of, Martinez and Kakai, that was a great fight, especially for an opening bout on the prelims. And I think as well, Danny Martinez was actually coming up in weight from 25 to 35. I think he had
really.
I think he came up, and so to be coming up in weight and then to be able to take punches on the chin that well and bring it really good opening bout for the card.
Yeah.
But the welterweight fight between Lorenz Larkin, not to jump too many fights, but he has so much speed, man. He dropped down from 85 down to 70, and the speed and the power carried over with him, and it showed. I mean, he is a phenomenal striker, and the speed is just crazy at that weight.
I mean, real quick, we've seen in the past, though, as while there can only be technically one fight of the night, we've still seen Dana White reward guys, even though unofficially, I think you might have been one of them.
I was one of them, yeah.
You know.
That's right.
Absolutely. He'll the UFC's pretty good about sending you a check in the mail. If everything goes well, you made your weight, they sold out, whatever, everybody made money, everybody had a good time, they'll cut you something in the mail. Sometimes it's more
little Godfather style. Hey, here's a little taste for you.
So and I've heard of guys as well that went through battles, but there could only be one fight of the night.
Yeah.
And they were heavily rewarded after with real good money. So
Nice.
the UFC is pretty good about giving you a little something on the back end.
Does it? Do you get a heads up? I remember in the last whichever the fight this was. I'm blanking, but I remember
Against Richard Walsh?
What's that? Was it the Filthy Rich? Yeah. Alan's fight. Yeah, I remember at the press conference, everybody was kind of buzzing, and Dana did say, "Yeah, these guys are going to get taken care of." And you got that lean over, going, "It's all right, kid, we got you."
Yeah.
Does that always happen, or do you hear stories of guys just find a check in the mail, going, "Oh shit, I guess my match was that good after all"?
I wasn't aware of it. I mean, I didn't hear about it my UFC debut.
Yeah.
But as a couple fights into the UFC, I started seeing that, guys were getting stuff. I was receiving checks in the mail. And then obviously, like you're saying, at the press conference at my last fight, I thought that I was going to get a bonus because of the knockout. I didn't get it. There was so many good performances that night. I didn't get it. But Dana White did lean over, tell me, don't worry, you're taken care of. And then he did take care of me. So.
But do guys get surprise checks in the mail? Have you heard stories about that? Or
I think it's kind of an unset rule that you usually get something in the mail like 6 to 8 weeks after the fight. Other than after that, aside from that, I'm not sure of anything.
Is it more so like maybe on the pay-per-view cards? Because obviously that's extra revenue coming in.
Well, I was kind of wondering that, man. I'm still somewhat new to the game in the UFC. This one coming up, I have in 2 weeks will be my fourth fight, so I'm still kind of filling out everything.
Yeah.
But I thought the same thing. If the Staples Center card that I fought on did very well.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of money at the gate.
A lot of media and everything there.
A lot of media. Ronda Rousey did her job bringing all the media outlets in, and then we performed in return. So I didn't know if there would be a different, if you get paid more on the back end after. So I'm still waiting to see. But, it's good to know that at least there's something coming in if you win or lose, as long as you go ahead and you make weight and you do your job.
Does it matter to you if you fight on a pay-per-view card as opposed to like a Fox card?
Well, the pay-per-view, I mean, realistically, I would say that the free fights probably have more viewers because it's free, so more people are watching.
Sure.
Pay-per-view fights probably don't have as many viewers because it's expensive. But with that said, it's so much more media coverage. You have your press day and everything like that, and it's just everything on a bigger scale. So if I could fight on pay-per-view on the main card, I would definitely take that over anything. But as far as on the prelims, you don't get that much exposure for pay-per-view on the pay-per-view cards. But pay-per-view is just that much more amplified, that much more media wants to cover it.
What about a pay-per-view, prelims of the pay-per-view versus main event on a Fox, on a fight night?
Main event Fox. Yeah, all day. Yeah, because prelims pay-per-view is prelims Fox. It's the same thing. Prelims are prelims. They're free and they're on TV. So I'd rather be on the main card, getting Fox Sports 1, the UFC Tonight guys to cover me on the main card.
Yeah. Interesting. Hakron Diaz versus Levan Makashvili. Hakron Diaz winning by split decision 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. I had it, I believe I scored it for, actually, I take that back. I scored the second and third, and looks like I didn't have notes for myself for the first one. What do you guys think? Did that go in the right direction?
I think so. I remember kind of watching the fight, and it wasn't too exciting or exhilarating, but I did score it for Diaz. I just thought he was a little bit more productive in some ways.
Yeah.
No, not productive in general, just more productive than the other guy. So I think they scored it right.
He was, in the beginning, he was circling from the outside. Makashvili was on the outside and Diaz was on the center. Diaz got a takedown at the last minute. He got several takedowns. And the second round, I saw him working hard for submissions. He was working an arm bar earlier in the second, and then close to we had the clinch. Triangle. Diaz had the triangle in the second. That one I gave Diaz the second, but Makashvili, he kind of took over in the third. Was landing knees in the clinch. Granted, there was a groin strike early on Diaz. And then got a takedown in the second. Back and forth fight, one of those that I felt was close, but not a total barn burner, like we see in other ones that are definite fight of the nights. Did you catch that one, Alan?
I didn't, man. Unfortunately, my night I was in a rush. I didn't get to see them all, so I tried to see the ones that I could, man. But that was one of them I didn't get to.
Would you guys? Did you guys catch any of the finishes? I mean, let's talk about. There were some two ridiculously sweet KOs, and of course Larkin's TKO. Well, and Romero's KO for that matter as well.
How about what's his face? Thiago Santos TKO.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Thiago Santos. I mean, the action literally, guys. I'm going to read here. Left roundhouse kick, left head kick. Good night. Match is done. My commentary may have lasted longer than the actual fight itself. That one, I think, certainly goes down as one of the top finishes of 2015. Maybe,
He's a long guy. He's a rangy looking guy. I'm not sure how tall he was.
Yeah.
I didn't see the stats, but he looks somewhere around like 6'3" or something, 6'4". It's just he's very legs and reach very long. And he did a nice job setting it up. He opened up the fight moving very well, caught him with the inside kick, and then he circled more, caught him with a body shot, and then that just set up the head kick. I mean, he just really started changing levels and going higher and higher. And the body kick must have made an impact, because his opponent, as soon as he threw the head kick, I could see the adjustment of him trying to go high. I could see his body language changing, because I knew he wanted to go high, but his opponent was still protecting the rib cage from that body kick, and he got caught in the head, and it was just an early night for him.
A nasty KO too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head here and failing here. Steve Bossi.
Fabio Maldonado.
Bingo, thank you. I knew I could rely on you for this.
And thank you, Sure Dog.
Steve Bossi was the guy, hockey enforcer. I think he's got one of the more interesting stories of probably the guys on this.
A real life goon.
Yeah, on this card, hockey goon in a previous life, and came into MMA. I was scouted by Stefan Paltry, if I remember hearing correctly, who at one point was managing George St. Pierre and also a promoter in the Montreal area. Saw Bossi in games and recruited him to MMA. Had some really good success in Maximum Fighting Championships, MFC up in Edmonton, and then I believe he retired, and then was, I don't want to say retired, but then was offered a fight in the UFC. Now this is where my facts get a little bit foggy here. Was it the Fabio Maldonado fight that he was recruited for and then dropped from it?
Yeah.
Because Rampage was going to fight Fabio Maldonado.
Yeah, when they said that he wasn't going to be able to fight.
They put Steve Bossi in. And then when Rampage could fight after all, Bossi got pulled out. Now, was that the same one that was his first offering?
Yeah. I believe so, yeah.
Because I thought that there was a chapter even before that where they'd offered him.
And so he never fought, and this was...
He never fought, and this was his UFC debut.
And what was it? He was a hockey goon. He was what, just fighting and
yeah, he was an enforcer. He was, the big thug. Excellent film called Goon with Stifler from American Pie. I want to get his name. Sean William Scott. Is his name?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what movie you're talking
I know,
about.
we're way off topic here, but it's excellent film. I didn't know what a hockey goon was either, really.
I didn't know the Goon until WWF, when there was a character named the Goon.
What time is it now?
Wild Bill Irwin.
Wrestling Connection comes in here at 1956.
And I know a lot of wrestling fans turned MMA fans know exactly. Like, yeah, me too. That's one reason why I know who the Goon is.
Right. No, I remember the character, or I remember hearing about it. That was during that brief time that I was out of the squared circle and the worked stuff. But at any rate, though, Thiago Santos certainly earned that KO. Tony Sims as well. Creepy Steve, or the Creepy Weasel, Steve Montgomery from ATT, actually a cast member on American Ultimate Fighter, American Top Team versus Black Zillions, had an issue in the early couple episodes.
Was it the guy that had the seizure?
Bingo, yep. He was cutting weight. He was selected to fight and was cutting weight. I think they don't announce who's fighting until the weigh-ins, but within the team they had already selected him. Cutting weight, had a bad cut, apparently not enough electrolytes, I believe it was. This is at least a storyline in the on the show, and ended up having a seizure. And they immediately pretty much, I don't want to say cut him from the show, but he went on medical suspension.
It was pretty cool that they gave him a chance to fight even before the season ended.
Yeah, absolutely. They did make good on him. Unfortunately, it didn't go his way. Yeah. There was a bit of a feeling out process. Tony Sims had a takedown shot on him, cage clinch. Creepy Steve landed the knee, but if I remember correctly, kind of coming off that shortly thereafter, Sims drops Steve with overhand left, and he kind of turned and boom, like flat on his face, and Sims landed one more left on him. I think it was on all fours, and then with the extra one landed him flat.
Yeah, I remember. I saw that fight. Sims was he impressed me, man, with his hand speed. He had really, I want to say, loose shoulders, man. The way he would throw his punches, it just came off real loose, real natural. And he caught him slipping, man. His hands were a little bit low and a little bit extended, being such a rangy fighter. Yeah. And Sims capitalized on it, man. It was a beautiful KO.
Yeah. That one to me was the other one I thought should have gotten performance bonus. So maybe Tony Sims will get a surprise in the mail at some point.
Yeah, let's hope so.
So let's talk about the co-main event here. Santiago Gente Boa. I want to work on that. Gente Boa is my guess. And I meant to look up his nickname here. Ponzinibbio versus Lorenz the Monsoon Larkin. We touched on it a little bit here. Larkin, one of certainly a guy, kind of a neighbor regionally for all of us here. But what do you think? Next steps for Lorenz Larkin?
I mean, he's still a new welterweight, kind of trying to climb up the ranks. Maybe after somebody beats someone else, who knows? Maybe just like a natural matchup.
You got something there.
This guy.
Yeah, that would be an exciting fight, man. He's a great striker. I'm a fan though, man. Even though he's a guy that I could potentially face later on down the line, I respect the sport. I respect the fighters, and I respect his striking, man. He's always exciting to watch, man. Even in his losses, he brings it. He's one of those guys that when he strikes, when he hits people, you can tell that they're not liking it. You know what I mean? Like there's some fights where the punches are coming and going, or they're smiling, but when Lorenz Larkin throws a combo at you, or he throws a vicious body kick, those guys aren't smiling. They're thinking, crap, what did I get myself into? Let me take this guy down. You can see the speed and power that he throws everything with, man. And he's just got super crisp technique. And I was saying it a while ago, but to come down from 185 and carry all that power and the speed, man, the speed's crazy speed that he has. So he's definitely a force to be reckoned with, man. And he's got physically, he doesn't look like you would say this guy's the most athletic guy in the UFC, but he's got that almost Romero type of explosiveness in him, man. He's really, really good at explosive striking, and even you get him to the ground, he's really good at exploding back up and stuff. So I think big things are coming to him. It's only his second fight, I think you said, in the welterweight division, but coming from Strikeforce and being an 85er in the UFC and now being undefeated as a welterweight, I think that kind of brings him a little. He's not gonna have to start from the bottom of the ladder here. Yeah. I think he's starting from just outside the top 15, maybe one more fight, and then I think he's within the top 30 or something after this win.
I was just gonna ask that. I'm wondering, in a guy like that, how soon do you start talking about that cracking towards the 115? Of course, with his history with Strikeforce, and I am cheating here, or maybe George, you should cheat here. I'm trying to remember a fight with
Robbie Lawler?
History with Robbie Lawler.
Right.
Thank you. Yep. Strikeforce, July 2012.
So I want to say that's 3 years ago. And of course, Lawrence Larkin is the first guy to say that was a completely different Robbie Lawler back then. But still, a victory is a victory, you know?
Right.
But that was that was when Lawler started kind of turning things around, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's he had a long career by that point and was mixed in previous to that and in Strikeforce, but then around that time started turning things around, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Did you ever, refresh my memory, I'm trying to think if you did anything at 85 in the amateurs. So I believe you always fought, I know in your amateurs at 70, right?
Yeah, even at amateurs I'd say it's 70. I'm happy at 70, you know. I'm not one of these guys, a lot of guys that when they're in the off season, they could put on 20, 30 pounds. Then there's not so much of a size difference if they have to go up or down in weight. But I'm a guy that I don't really fluctuate that much when it comes to off season.
You don't really have an off season.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much stay in shape year round. But even if I'm out of shape or in shape, I'm usually around the same weight. So I'm not one of these guys. But yeah, guys like the Lorenz Larkin, and that leads to other topics that I'm sure we might discuss later with the IVs possibly being banned and stuff. So you're gonna see maybe some guys that like Lorenz Larkin who looked pretty drawn out at weigh-ins. Some of those guys, the bigger welterweights that have more to cut, at least more, they're carrying around more water weight, might possibly have to move up a division, if this IV ban does go through.
It's a good point that you bring that up. Maybe it's just me, but for whatever reason, I feel like 85 to 70 is it's got to be one of the tougher cuts. And I think this is probably just my own impression and opinion, but it seems like at 85 or 205, you've got a lot more, obviously you got a lot more size, just more mass, but it seems like that's that threshold where, in terms of men that do this fighting thing here, adding height and weight, body mass in general, I would think that 85 to 70, for some reason, it seems like it's a tougher cut that you're really starting to strain yourself, as opposed to something like 70 to 55, where granted, then again, it's what, 25? No, that's 15 pounds.
It's 15 pounds, but you actually, even though numerically it's the same kind of cut, it is a difference. You see a lot more guys going between the 55 and 70 divisions than you do, I think, between the 70 and 85.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure why that is. But for me, like, you see 85ers and you see, if I stood next to Chris Weidman or some of these guys that we just spoke of, they're much bigger than me. You know, they're much bigger. They're sitting around 6'3". They're walking around 225 or something. Yeah.
What do you typically walk at if you're not scheduled for a fight?
Yeah, I'm walking around 190, low 190s, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I'm 6 feet even. But some of these guys that fight 85 are really big men. I mean, you see 85ers that have come down from heavyweight down to light heavyweight, and then they've made a home at 85, and I find that cut from 85 to 70 would be a dramatic difference. But there's a lot of 55ers out there that could float back and forth between welterweight and lightweight.
That's interesting. There's got to be something in the science in terms of everything, all of those factors combined that, makes it, because it is easier when you're heavier. You have more wet mass and water to drop, making it an easier cut than if you're 35 going to 25 or something. Percentage of your weight is what we're talking about, and easier to cut that.
And it's interesting you brought that up. I was speaking to someone about this the other night when I was at some fights, but you see guys that are fighting at flyweight cutting more weight than guys that are cutting, fighting at welterweight and stuff. Because there's a lot of guys that I know that fight at 125 that walk around close to 150. Yeah. And they have a huge cut. And so it's a much larger percentage of their body mass, of their body weight that has to come out. But these 25ers aren't these guys that look like jockeys. They're not jockeys. They're guys that look like an average, guy
that you think you couldn't bully around. That's not a little guy.
Right. This guy's an average-looking guy. He's like 5'8" or something, walks around at 150, But this guy cuts 25 pounds and fights at 125. Yeah. And it's funny how you would think that the 125ers are cutting the least amount of weight, but a lot of these guys have really bad weight. Ian McCall, I remember my pro debut,
Uncle Creepy.
The guy would just be on the couch just moaning. He was in so much pain. He had a horrible cut. He has horrible cuts, but he makes, to make the weight. Yeah. So these 25ers, man, they have a rough road too.
Right. Let's get to the main event here. Let's talk about this. I was super excited and fascinated by this combination when they announced it. Lyoto Machida, former UFC light heavyweight champion, the guy that supposedly brought back karate, or maybe he did.
The crane kick.
Yeah, the crane kick. Somebody that a very unusual background. One of the only guys I've ever heard of that has claimed sumo as part of his background. Certainly one of the only guys ever that's actually competitive at his level in shoot fights. To talk about being training formerly in sumo, versus Yoel Romero, whom where do we start? Olympian wrestler, silver medalist. Yep, silver medal.
I looked up. He does hold a victory over probably one of the greatest accomplished amateur wrestlers is Cael Sanderson.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Guys, that alone. Go look up Cael Sanderson. Read his history. That when you get a win over Cael Sanderson, you've definitely got talent.
When you're in the same breath as Dan Gable, that alone is pretty impressive.
Yeah, another name for you guys to study on.
Thank you, Kurt Angle. Because if it wasn't for Kurt Angle, I wouldn't know who Dan Gable is.
But on top of that, with his rise in the UFC, you hear about a guy with such wrestling credentials, but he comes in. And what was it? I think maybe his third knockout in the UFC or something like that. Heavy, fast hands, really yoked and big, but he moves like a panther. Super fast, agile, not clumsy or goofy. I mean, he's swift like a ballerina practically, but yoked out. And then to face somebody with the veteran pedigree of Lyoto Machida, that's a really fascinating combination. And
always dangerous.
Yeah, and really interesting in styles. I mean, this is probably, if you watch these two guys or studied them the least bit, in my opinion, because I'll finish the sentence. These are two guys where you can see their styles more blatantly than many other fighters. It's just more pronounced. And so therefore you can kind of compare, and there's a lot of things to talk about and digest in terms of what this match could have been. Certainly a lot for us to talk about in terms of what this match actually was as well.
I've been waiting for Yoel Romero to fight, because he's been scheduled to fight, I think, at least twice against Jacare.
I think 3 times.
Yeah, which that alone, that was a fight I've been wanting to see, but obviously injuries, and finally, I think it's the first time since September, since the whole Stoolgate, with Tim Kennedy.
Yeah.
And he knocked out Tim Kennedy. But yeah, I've been waiting for this guy to fight. Same thing, Machida. Here's the guy that is very active nowadays. He just fought Dalloway, just fought Rockhold. Now, definitely
fast turnaround. Yeah. What do you guys think of this match?
Honestly, I trained with Machida.
Yeah.
Before I trained with Machida, I was a huge fan. You can't not respect Machida for not only his accomplishments, but as he is as a man, as a martial artist. He shows so much respect and class inside the cage and outside the cage. And he's just somebody that he's really just great for everyone to look up to. So I've always had that respect for him. Now that I train with him, I have even greater respect.
How long have you been training with him?
I've been training with Machida for about 2 years now.
Wow!
And I was probably his last sparring session, his last sparring session, before this fight. And I know we went, I want to say 3 rounds straight, and in the cage. And exactly, the second round that we sparred, he dropped me twice with body kicks. So essentially, I lost like 3 times in one round. He was looking really good. He felt ready. He was really pushing himself this camp. He was very prepared. And I was really worried about Yoel Romero, because he's got the potential to do anything. He's got the potential to beat anybody with his wrestling credentials, and now that he knows how to punch and his movement alone. But I thought, you know what? I see somehow Machida peppering him to the body with the kick, and then being able to slow him down, because Yoel is a suspect of fading sometimes in fights.
Yeah, sure.
With all that muscle, that density.
Yeah.
So I was worried going into this fight, man. And Machida looked good in the first round. He outpointed him the first round. I gave Machida the first round, and then Yoel just slowly started catching up, man. And the thing about him, dude, is he did one move in this fight that sometimes you see people, their body movement, and I had to rewind it. And he did something, him and Machida in the clinch, and he did a jumping knee to Machida's face. Machida's standing, completely postured at 6'1". He jumps up, knees Machida. I don't know if it landed, but in the face. Yeah. And then goes all the way down to the ground and feints an ankle pick. And then springs back up. And I don't know if I gave you a great description of that, but the athleticism involved in the middle of the second round going against Machida, it was phenomenal, dude. I mean, that alone, doing that, it's like doing a jump squat or something. It was crazy. When I saw him do that, I was just like, God dang, this guy is a phenomenal athlete, man. And it just caught up with him, man. Machida was on the ground trying to maybe play some kind of half guard, and Yo was able to start landing some elbows. And thank God, man, honestly, thank God that John McCartney, being a big-bodied individual and a knowledgeable person, he was behind them when they went down, and I saw after Yo Romero landed one elbow, John started getting at a better angle, and thank God he ran in there and stopped it. Just because those last 3 elbows, and this wasn't any bad sportsmanship by Yo Romero. He did a great job of stopping when John stepped in. But those last 3 elbows, the first 2 elbows, I believe, put Machida unconscious. And then he just did his job and kept elbowing. But those last 3 elbows really took its toll on Machida's face. I mean, I think the last 2 broke his nose and then closed his eye. And he didn't get up for the decision at all. And it was tough to watch for me.
Yeah. I gave Romero the first and Machida, actually, ironically, Machida the second because of the leg kicks. The match itself reminded me a lot of the first Machida and Hua fight, with Lyoto playing the outside and really, it seemed, I guess, trying to take him into deep waters with a lot of the leg kicks and body kicks. Seemed like he was trying to wear him out a little bit. Did he come? Do you think that he came with? Was that necessarily the strategy? Do you think that or were you privy to that at all? Even
I think I mean, I don't know what the game plan is, but he did have all his. He had Kenny Johnson in his corner, which I don't believe he had in his last fight against Chris Weidman.
And he had Henner Grayson too, right? Was that Henner?
He's always kind of got. I think he's pretty much always got Henner. But he had, when he fought Chris Weidman, he didn't have the wrestling coach, Kenny Johnson, who trains us, and it worried me a little bit because you're going against. I'm sorry, not Chris Weidman. I apologize. His last fight that he lost against
Luke Rockhold.
Luke Rockhold. Thank you. He didn't have Kenny Johnson, and that kind of worried me. Not having a wrestling coach, just kind of assuming that it might be a stand-up war. But he definitely had the Kenny Johnson, and he had the great camp and the team here to do it. Yo Romero just capitalized on a small opportunity, and when you're that explosive and that strong of an individual, you can do that, man. Small openings present big opportunities for you.
What's he like training on the ground? Because I feel like we don't really see too much of Machida on the ground in fights, but of course, things that happen in the gym is completely different.
Right. And
not meaning to break that unspoken rule, but what is it like rolling with him?
He is a black belt, and he does have guard game as well. He's not just a top guard black belt. He does have guard game. He has really good triangles. He's really good at getting wrist control and then basing out like a traditional Gracie style triangle setup from guard. And he actually has really good jiu-jitsu, man, and he's one of those guys that will spar 5 rounds, and then when you're taking off your gear, ready to go home, he wants to do a couple rounds of jiu-jitsu on the mat. So he's put in the time, and like I said, he was very prepared. But Yo Romero was just the better fighter that night. It's tough to see though, a man like Machida who's accomplished so much and such a good individual, lose 2 fights in a row, and then to take the kind of damage that he took this last fight. You never know where his head's going to be after this fight. He has a wife and kids at home, and they're watching their father, who's now 37 years old, lose 2 fights. Maybe he even had a concussion his last fight against Luke Rockhold. Takes another fight on a short on a short time frame, and then takes quite a pounding after this fight. It's hard not to listen to your family if they don't want to see that kind of damage. So I'm hoping. I'm hoping that Machida makes the right decision for his health, but as a fan, I'm hoping to see him fight more.
You think when you say the right decision for his health, are you automatically inferring that?
And I'm not.
I don't think you're saying that he's done. I'm guessing.
Right. No. and I don't know anything from the inside. I'm just saying from an outside perspective, you see a man who's 37 years old, and he's kind of fought everybody in the top 5, and he's kind of knows
in both
where
divisions too.
Right. He's been in both divisions. He kind of knows where he stands. He's still the kind of guy that could fight for a long time and just exciting super fight matchups, which is kind of like what he's doing now. Machida's almost always going to be a main event fighter. It's like you could just put his name Machida and he can fight anybody, and it makes it a main event. He's that kind of fighter. He's established enough, and he's almost a household name in the UFC world. So he will always be that kind of fighter. But at the same time, it's the same debate with like GSP. Like when you've accomplished enough and you made enough money, do you want to take that much more damage for this amount of time? So we'll see what he does, man. But I wish the best for him.
Yeah, and to that extent, I'm thinking here, of course, his close friend and teammate Anderson Silva. A lot of what we've seen in Anderson's comeback, a big part of that story was does Anderson want to fight anymore? Or rather, does Anderson's family want him to fight anymore? And of course, them vehemently asking him not to, but he still has certain, itch for it. It's so much of who he is. I have to think that Machida is going to take a few pages from that book in terms of making the decision, and that being a factor that weighs in on him heavily, one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Where do you think that Machida? Well, I mean, maybe we've answered that question already, but what do we do here with him? Do you think that there's still more matches in him? You think, or do we start to have that question about whether he should?
It just depends on what he wants to do. I mean, if he wants to still make a legitimate run for the belt, obviously these losses don't help the cause.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what he wants to do with his career. If he just wants to fight because he loves to fight, maybe put him up against a Tim Kennedy or maybe the winner of Bisping Talis Ladies.
It's an interesting matchup, actually, him and Tim Kennedy. Yeah. And by no means am I saying that Machida's past his prime or done.
Right.
I mean, like you said, that's a great matchup right there, and there's much more. And let's not forget that, in my eyes, and I think some other people too, he won the first round, or he won one of the first two rounds, first round or second round. Mm-hmm. So he was in the fight. It's not like he was ever out of the fight. Or it's not like he got clocked or he looked slow. The Luke Rockhold fight wasn't his best performance, but he had a good camp, put everything together, and he looked sharp in this fight. He was playing his game plan. He starts off slow, points fight you, wears you down, and then finds that opening. Romero just found the opening before he did. So, and by no means is Machida not the man that he's always been.
At the same time, too, it's like Romero, how often do we see him use his wrestling? The guy doesn't have to use his wrestling at some point.
Exactly.
We saw him use it, and it's like, oh, well, by the way, don't forget I'm a wrestler, too, and I can do that.
Yeah.
I was actually, when every time Machida would get in that between the black line and the cage, that 5-foot kind of barrier, I was watching Machida because I was thinking, what is he thinking? Is he thinking that the Yoel is trying to lure him in against the cage so he could shoot in? Mm-hmm. But Yoel, I don't think he shot in until that. That was like his first shot of the fight, I think.
Yeah,
he had a couple attempts.
He was very patient.
Yeah.
That's what continues to impress me about him is he's patient, but he's explosive. And when he's explosive, it's not just a M80 firecracker. It's a napalm bomb coming at you. It's a big bad torpedo.
And that takedown, by the way, was kind of more of an opportunity, not so much a thought out plan. He didn't shoot in. They were in a clinch, and he realized that he went for an inside leg trip, I believe, and then and the leg came out, and he just went for like a knee tap, and it was just kind of it looked almost natural. It looked instinctive to him. He inside leg trip, boom, muscled him down on the ground, and he was there. It wasn't like he did a 1-2 level change or anything, So it's just like, if you get in a clinch with me, I'll take you down. But other than that, I'm very comfortable on the feet, and I think that's the thought process that Yoel has these days, and he's successful with it.
Yeah. Well, Yoel Romero walking away with a KO in round 3. He is ranked at number 6. Lyoto Machida ranked at number 4. Of course, a couple of things here. Of course, pretty much with this show, we can close the door on these rankings. They don't mean nothing anymore because we're getting a whole new ranking system. There's that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, presumably the new ranking system going along with the new UFC uniforms, new sponsorship deal with Reebok, whole lot of changes going on for July. That's something I'm very curious to get your 2 cents or 4 cents on those topics. But let's not leave out the elephant in the room here. Yoel Romero winning and delivering one of what's going to be the most talked about and possibly one of the most interesting post-fight interviews of 2015. Guys, if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go ahead and I'm sure you can find it very easily online. But what's the gist of it? John Anik asked him about the fight, and in a nutshell, I don't want to quote him. Actually, we should probably pull up because a couple of people have transcribed it. Right. He spoke in English, pretty broken accent. The gist of it, there's the gist of what you heard, and then the gist of, or what he says was the gist of it, his meaning. Essentially talking about, he's a Christian. He's been very been open about that. John 3:16 headband, something akin to, what was it? America, the U.S., what's going on or what happened to you? The real, what was it? Don't forget Christ, Jesus Christ, the best of the best, right?
Right, the real best.
Yeah.
Jesus is, yeah.
And then that last moment there in the interview, George, if you've got the exact line, there were the last three words, I believe, were something about.
Well, okay. So some people thought he said, "Go for Jesus, not forget Jesus, people." Other people heard, "Go for Jesus, not for gay Jesus, people." Of course, I'm saying it in what I think is good English, and you also got to think this guy's his English is not good,
right?
By any means. So again, that's where the debate begins.
Which is definitely a fact and also somewhat of an alibi here. Yeah. Obviously, this was a lot of people took this to heart. That it was speaking to the big decision in the U.S. this week about gay marriage ban being deemed unconstitutional, and certainly a lot of people are thrilled about this. A lot of people are not so thrilled about this. A lot of Christians specifically not thrilled about this, and Yoel Romero seeming to be quite a born-again adherent Christian. A lot of people took this to be his statement his stance rather on the issue. He recanted. Of course, social media blew up right away, and it's funny. You've got about an hour between the last post-fight interview in the main event and the post-fight press conference. An hour is plenty of time for social media to just kill itself, right? And for civil war to happen on Twitter. He recanted or tried to clarify his statement, saying that he was not taking an anti-gay stance at the press conference. I don't know how much I bought that one.
This is the thing. I rewatched it to see what he said, and it sounded like an anti-gay slur to me. I mean, his English is very hard to understand. He was emotional. I don't know if that's how his voice always sounds, but it was like very kind of distorted in a way.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't understand when it was live. But when I went back and watched it, he's opened up his speech by saying something about don't forget.
Yeah.
And so I listened to the way he said forget. It didn't sound like no gay. It sounded like forget.
Yeah.
So when he later on down in his speech, when he said go for Jesus, no for gay Jesus.
Right.
That sounded a lot different. Like that's the argument here. They're trying to. Yeah. The PR team is trying to flip it. That he was trying to say, that he
was talking about the American dream and
right.
Go for Jesus.
Go for Jesus.
Forget Jesus.
No forget Jesus
is what people want.
They're trying to flip it that's what it was, but it was pretty distinct in the way he said forget, and the second time the way he said no gay Jesus. So obviously I think he was taking a stand. He's, like you said, he's a soldier of God. Soldier of God is his nickname. He's got the John 3:16 thing. He has his beliefs, and that's fine. That's why we're here in America, man. That's why gay marriage is legal, because we're a free country. We can have our rights, and we have a free right to have our own opinion. With that said, I just went to the UFC summit a couple weeks ago where they were really lecturing us on how to build superstars and how to manage your time, how to manage your brand, your social media,
public figures.
And let me tell you something. Whatever he said, the UFC was not happy. I promise you. The one thing they really, really preached to us was, look, if you have a political opinion or you have a religious belief, you share that at home. You don't share that you're part of a brand, you're part of a sport. Yeah. And they do not like that at all. I think I also remember one time Dana White saying that they asked him if he regrets anything over the years. Look, Dana White's had a lot of screw-ups, don't lie. He said a lot of things. He's went back on his word a lot of times. He's a great promoter, but he's had a lot of screw-ups. And he said, you know what, I don't take back anything. The only thing I ever take back is one thing. I think he said when he made a gay slur one time. I think he said something like that's so gay or whatever happened, and he got a lot of. It hit him really hard, and that's the one thing I remember him saying. That's the one thing I take back is making that homophobic remark. And since then, he's very, very stern about. I think one of the.
It was I believe Loretta Hunt wrote an article about fight managers. This is my recollection, guys. Not I've not spoken to either of the parties to really get their sides, but if I remember correctly, she wrote an article about fight managers not getting credentialed anymore backstage for UFC events, which led to Dana going on a rant on YouTube, dropping F-bombs, not F-U-C-K, that would be fine in this society. The other one.
Gotcha.
and calling people pussies and this and that, and of course that caught the attention of GLAAD and several other gay rights groups.
If I believe right, what's his name that fights Legacy Kickboxing? He was WEC champ at one time. Didn't he get...
Miguel Torres?
Was it Miguel
Torres?
Miguel
Angel Torres, yeah.
Was it because of
it was, he had quoted a joke from...
wasn't it like a rape joke, though?
Yeah. It was
a
joke from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, apparently, and he quoted on Twitter talking about... Well, I'm not going to give credit to it, but yeah, it
wasn't a gay slur, but either way, it was something that shouldn't have been spoken about, and that was the UFC taking a stand, saying, "Look, we don't talk about the religion, we don't talk about things that are going on right now, the gay stuff, the racial things. We try to keep you guys out of that," and that's what they preached to us at this summit a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas. So I know when this happened, Dana White was probably everybody in UFC was probably infuriated.
So you're saying pretty much let's say for argument's sake he didn't say the homophobic slur, but the fact that everybody's talking about it is still
exactly. He was trying to make a point, and whatever point he was trying to make, and like I said, I like Romero. He's a super nice guy. Every interview I've ever seen, and I'm a fan of his fighting. But it looked like, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but from what I watched, he was making a homophobic slur.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're trying to flip it, and it just wasn't. For him, that's his belief, and he's obligated to have that. And so I want to say it wasn't good timing.
Right.
For him, he was passionate about it because that's what he believes, and so that's why he said it. But definitely the UFC is saying bad timing right now. You shouldn't say that.
I'm gonna defend the guy just because I think we all, I don't want us to all agree, but I'm gonna defend him. I mean, at the same time, like I said, his English was very, very broken, and it's like people are only. What about the other words that he didn't say correctly? How come nobody's kind of trying to pick apart that? Yes, the one line is kind of controversial, but again, like it's so bad that it's like I didn't even know half the other stuff that he said to begin with, And I think a lot of it does have to do with the timing of the situation of what happened, 24, 48, 72 hours ago. That I think it's kind of still heavily on someone's mind. If this was a week ago, I don't think it'd be as it'd still be a big deal, but not as big of a deal as it is right now.
You could be right. I mean, it could be so fresh on people's minds that that's what they wanted to hear. But also, I think it was also a little bit to do with the way that he started out the speech. He started off very
very vehement, wasn't he?
Right, very almost aggressive, and almost talking to he was talking to America, to Florida, to what's going on here. So trying to prove a point.
Whether it's interesting seeing everything come out afterwards. Watching it live, I actually didn't even pick up on gay in his speech, but I did get that my interpretation of what he said was being critical about about gay marriage. Like he was taking a counter stance against gay marriage being legalized, which you raised probably the best point. I think that it's bad timing, and also it's not the place for you to do something like that. I absolutely respect his right to say what he wants to say, but I didn't even pick up on the gay thing, but I did pick up on his meaning being anti equal marriage equality, which I thought was interesting. That you can try and slice it a couple different ways, but you're still ending up with that same kind of pie, So that said, we're wrapping up very shortly here, but let's talk a little bit about you. Man, 2 weeks from now, you're on a stacked card. We're getting a break this week, guys, but after that, we're going to have another nuts gung-ho week of UFC action, and our guy here is going to be one of the big stars of it. Of course, we've got the pay-per-view with Aldo and McGregor, hopefully, fingers crossed, on the 11th. Then on the 12th, is Ultimate Fighter finale in Las Vegas, and then on the 15th, it's you, buddy. San Diego, you versus Matt Dwyer. I believe is second or third fight in the UFC.
Correct. Third fight.
Headlined with the headliner, of course, is Frank Mir versus Todd Duffy. But man, you're part of an incredibly stacked card that we're very psyched about.
It's a good card, man, and I'm not promoting my own card, but if as a fight fan. anytime you get a good card for free on Fox, it's exciting. Anytime you get a good card for free on a Wednesday, it's like, okay, you think the Wednesday is going to be like the throwaway card, but this is a real good card. Like he said, Frank Mir, Todd Duffy headlining. I believe I'm opening the main card, but then there's also Tony Ferguson, who's on a tear right now. He's fighting his first ranked fighter in Josh Thompson, and then there's a really intriguing fight with Al Iaquinta, who was supposed to fight Bobby Green, which was already an amazing fight, and then that fight got better somehow because Bobby Green unfortunately tore his ACL, and to replace him, chipped in Gilbert Melendez.
I probably annoyed the 3 or 4 people that watch this show, but that was fun, and that's gonna start happening on a regular basis now.
So I believe Gilbert stepped in. I haven't even looked at the card in a while, but I believe it's Gilbert Melendez now against Al Iaquinta, which that's a terrific fight. Super right exciting. There. And I'm sorry if I'm leaving out some of the other. As well, my teammate James Muntasiri, who's a really exciting fighter, Olympic Taekwondo junior Olympics
sitting right
guy.
there exactly 1 week ago.
Oh, he was here. Okay, yeah. James, one of my teammates. He's fighting. I forgot the guy's name.
Kevin Lee, right?
Where is he at? Where is he at?
Kevin Lee.
Kevin Lee. Oh, and Holly Holmes is on the same card.
Boom.
Fighting Marion Renew, but a bunch of exciting fights, man. A bunch of good fighters. It should be fun. I'm fighting Matt Dwyer. He's a really tall 6'4" guy, Canadian striker, and he's wrestling and stuff as well. But the thing about him is, I needed a fight. He needed a fight. I was looking down a list of names. My manager sent me of guys who need fights, and he was the first name on the list. So he's the first fight that I watched. I looked him up. He was coming off of a knockout win off of Paralino, I believe his name is. He trains with me, who's at Black House right now training. Oh, great. Super funny guy from the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. And he beat Paralino with the Superman punch and had an impressive performance, impressive TKO. I was coming off of an impressive TKO myself. We both needed fights. And then we both have 8 knockouts to our record. And I just said, you know what, this makes too much sense. This sounds like, a barn burner. We're both strikers with 8 knockouts. And I called him out on Twitter, which I never do.
Really?
I'm getting there, man. It must be the wrestling background. I'm trying to follow in your footsteps. Just I'm trying to start some
the AfterBuzz rub is working on you, man.
But I'm not.
That's going to be the worst thing possible for you.
I'm working on it. I'm working on my marketing skills. But I'm not the type of guy that's going to be disrespectful unless you disrespect me or my family. But in this game, man, especially with 100 fighters being in my division, and they could send you halfway across the world, I said, you know what, man, let's get on it. Let's call out this guy. This is a good fight. He needs a fight. I need a fight. Let's call out this date. July 15th. It's next time. It's near where I live. It'd be an exciting fight on an exciting card. Let's do this. Put it out there. The universe came back to me, man.
You were the most congenial shit talker that I can think of.
It made sense though. It's just taking initiative sometimes in UFC. You see, it's like, if not, they're gonna go and rank you up with whoever they want and send you halfway across the world. Look, if you want to fight in your backyard and you want to fight somebody, let it be known.
It's controlling your own career as much as possible.
Why not?
Yeah. Interesting.
Makes sense. Pretty smart.
God, I want to get into that more with you, but we are wrapping up here, running out of time. Real quickly, let's talk about your social media. Where are you at?
Oh, with social media too, guys. If you're on social media, check out my new webisode, man.
Yes,
the Brahma series. I'm in love with it. I may be biased, but doing a weekly webisode leading up to my fight. I think we're gonna release every Wednesday. The intro one just came out last week, and I was blown away. It's kind of like a countdown, more like a embedded. If you really dig embedded, very short, leaves you wanting more. You're gonna love my new series, Brahma. It's really well done. Please check it out. And I'm on all social medias at Alan Jouban. My new website is up, alan-jouban.com. Check that out as well.
Nice.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ghermoza. We're not here next week on the UFC, but I'm here. I was going to mention, too, Daria Baronato. Now that I know the format, I'd say vote for her, but I don't think that they're going to have the opportunity to vote because I don't think she's going to be in the bottom 3 anytime soon.
We're not going to need to vote for her. It's much more of a survival thing. And
pretty much.
Is she kicking ass?
Oh,
so far so good.
Like what?
I haven't watched, but
it's ridiculous.
I'm excited for her.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Follow Tough Daria and support our girl at USA and WWE's Tough Enough, which is Tuesday nights. When's your Tough Enough after show, man?
Oh, we have a Tuesday nights at 11 p.m. Right after Tough Enough.
Very cool.
On West Coast.
I got 2 more weeks of Ultimate Fighter, ATT versus Black Zillions on when is it? Thursdays. Thursdays at 5 o'clock. Join me, Suri Serrano, Jared Gilkerson, my girl Alexis Torres. Otherwise, JTAN716 all over your usual social media. So, we will be seeing you in 2 weeks, and that's all we got for you. Take care, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Tom is that guy.
There you bury
later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.